Hello, welcome back to our garden here in Norfolk. Now, it's the second weekend in May and we need to be sowing some things. You can see down there that I have been busy sowing some more plants. There's some cabbages there, some romanesco, there's some cauliflower, and there's some turnip.
And calibres.
Yes, and some more marathon calibres. And what I'm going to sow into here are sprouts. Now in today's programme we are actually going to be taking a look at successional seed sowing and some successional plantings. So I'm aiming to get 2 seeds per cell, and then we shall thin to the strongest seedling. So this is a successional planting. When we go outside into the garden, I'll show you exactly where they're going to go, and what they are actually going to follow are broad beans. Our broad beans are already getting pods on them, so we'll probably, I would imagine, be starting to harvest these by the end of May and then into June. By the time they've finished their cropping, somewhere around mid-June, these plants will be ready to go into the ground. And at this time of the year you always want to be ready to go, because time is very valuable. The clocks sprung forward back in March and it's now mid-May. We only have about another month or so, and then the daylight hours will actually start to diminish. By mid-June they are at their longest. We get our longest day of the year, and then from then the days will only start to get shorter. So the sooner you can get your succession plantings into the ground, the longer they're going to have all of this lovely weather to do their growing and give you really good harvests during the autumn and winter period. So it's a good idea now to be thinking about your succession planting. As I said earlier in the year when we did our planner, I always make a rough plan, and they are my plans of where I'm going to put things and what's going to replace it, when I'm going to sow it. A plan is always flexible. It doesn't mean to say that it has to be done then, but it's just a reminder that sometime in this month, if I want these to harvest at Christmas time, November, December time, then they need to be sown now, and they need to go in the ground by mid to late June in order that we get that harvest. It could have been done at the beginning of May, they could have been sown towards the end of May. We have a time slot now where we can now do this, so that's why I'm doing it. Equally down here, the cauliflowers and the cabbage that I've sown here, they are actually going to go where the purple sprouting broccoli is. And then the calibres and romanesco, they are going to go next to the carrots, and then the cauliflower, they are going to succeed the garlic and the shallots that you can see over there in plot 3, bed 1. You can see they're looking really good, so they're not too far away from their harvest. I would expect to be harvesting those around about mid-June and no later than the end of June. These plants will then be ready to follow them immediately, and they will actually go in on the very same day that we harvest those plants. The same with anything, the day we twist them out, they go in. And really, that's all that succession planting is about. Everything you do to sow them, to bring them on, and then get them in the ground, that all remains exactly the same. It's just a little bit of forward thinking. That's all succession sowing and plantings are. And always keep in your mind, I need something ready. You don't want thousands of seedlings everywhere, but you do want things that are ready to go so that they can go in there. And what often can happen at this time of the year is that you've started these seeds off in all good faith and ready to get them in there, and all of a sudden your broad beans, they don't let you down, but the weather, we suddenly get a cold snap for the next week or so, and actually they don't finish the harvest until July, so they're probably going to be a bit big in there, and all you need to do is just pop those on into a slightly larger module or a pot just until you're ready to put them in there. Ideally you don't want to be doing that. I don't really pop anything on. They'll grow in those modules and I'll get those straight into the ground. But sometimes nature can say, hang on a minute, I'm going to throw some rain showers down and some really cold weather in the middle of May, which will set your plants out there back just a little bit and the time when they're going to be harvesting. But if you don't get these in there and nothing untoward happens with the weather and they harvest when you expect them to, you won't have anything to replace them with. And you could waste the next week of growing time because you didn't have anything to put in there. Now, what I do have to do is to I've got some shallots to put out, haven't I? They're going to be succeeding the radishes that we had outside growing. Now, if you remember, some of our celeriac didn't make it, so we had to re-sow. And the ones that we have re-sown, we have now pricked out and put into this module. The ones that did survive, you can see they're actually getting quite large. So what I'm going to do, because they're this big now and we are not expecting any frosts, the nighttime temperatures are looking really, really good. We have actually passed our last frost date, but that doesn't necessarily mean to say that you won't get a frost. So I've looked on the weather app and I can see that we're not due any frost for the next 10 days or so, at least. That's how far I can see ahead. And if we were, then I would just fleece them and cover them up so that they didn't get taken by the frost. But I'm actually going to plant these out into their final growing positions because they are getting a bit large. And then by the end of May, these will all follow. So they'll have a couple of weeks in here and then they'll go out and follow these into the ground. So hopefully yours are looking nice like this if you're doing the celeriac grow along with us. But I just wanted to be up front with you guys that so if you see these when I'm walking around, maybe next week when I'm doing a garden tour, it is because they have got quite big. You can see our tomatoes, they are coming along nicely. There's a great example here of a side shoot, and even though these are not going into the ground yet, you still need to be taking those side shoots out. There's another one on the other side here. You can see that they grow in between a leaf and a stalk and the stem. Just nip those out. These themselves are only a week or so away from going into here. We're starting to make space. The final harvests have been taken from the radish, all bar the one we're leaving to go to seed, and the spring onions are now going to come out. and then that will give us the space to drop those tomato plants in, and also the peppers and the chilies that have been down in our house but we now have up in the polytunnel, so they just start getting used to a slightly different temperature before they also go into the ground here in the greenhouse. So there's a lot going on at the moment, and there's a lot that we shall be filming. So if you want to see how we get on, you're not subscribed yet, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so that you'll be notified whenever we upload a video. Let's go get those shallots in, Mrs. W.
Okay.
You may remember that last year I wanted to sow and grow some shallots that went by the name of the broom, and we bought some seed, we sowed it, and not one germinated. Now, we did write to the company involved and they did send us some more seed, but by the time we received that seed it was a bit late in the year to be sowing them, and so we saved that seed for this year. We sowed those and we had really good germination. Here they are. What I do need to do is to be getting these into the ground. They need transplanting. They're going to go here. Got a nice root system developing, so that's good. And they're going to be very happy slotting into there. That's the shallots put into the ground. Hopefully we get to see exactly what they are like. You can see here that the beetroot coming along really quite nicely. It won't be long before they start bulbing up. Indeed, if I probably looked under the ground, they probably would be, but I'm not going to go right down there. But I can feel that. And as they get bigger, and actually you'll see them come out of the ground. They're looking really good. Now, beside those, I just want to get some more radish in. And for those of you that are following our garden plan, the radishes were just down there. Yeah, but we've finished those now, which is why we now need to get these in so that we continue to enjoy the taste of radish. And we've replaced those radishes now with those broom shallots. We've got a little space down here, so I'm just going to fill that, as I say, with these radishes. Now, of course, shallots are a member of the onion family. You can see that our onions, bulbing onions, have been in since mid-March. But it is a really good idea to keep on top of the weeds with onions. They really don't like having competition from the weeds. So do keep your hoe going in order that they don't suffer from that competition and they can actually have all the nutrients and the water that's been falling from the sky just lately. Now, judging by some of these, it's actually not going to be too long before we're going to start taking some of these away and using the spring onions. You can see here that these have been multi-sown. That's the way we sow our onions. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in there. And what I want to be able to do is to thin those down to just 4 and leave those to grow on. Now, the things we get from them, there'll be some spring onions for us. Now, right at the beginning of the video, when I was sowing the sprout seeds, when they are ready to go out, they're actually going to replace these broad beans. And so they will become a succession planting. As you can see on these, that they actually do have a bit of chocolate brown spots, so if you see this, don't worry too much. It doesn't really do the plant any harm. It looks unsightly more than anything. It will still harvest many broad beans.
That does look like somebody's just splashed cocoa on them, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yes.
There's definitely some little pods coming now as well.
You sure you haven't been painting our fence, Mrs. W?
No, I promise.
There are the pods starting to form. They all start forming at the bottom of the plant upwards. But you can see, just because you've got this brown spot over them, it's not affecting the pods whatsoever. If everything was a brown colour, you might have a bit of a problem, but it doesn't tend to happen like that. And it will be because there probably hasn't been enough airflow through there. And it's also been very, very wet and damp. That's what's caused a lot of this. Now you can see that we've taken the covers off the peas. They're doing really nicely, so hopefully not too long before they get up and around here and we start seeing the first flowers toward the end of May. I think in the last video I said to you that the parsnip hadn't germinated, and not too worried about that because it was only about a week old, and parsnip can take, around about a fortnight, 21 days in some cases before you see it come through. And it has come through. These are a little over 2 weeks old, and we now have parsnips that are germinating. And if you remember, when I sowed them, I said that we were going to sow them in 2s and 3s, probably 3s, three I think I put in there, didn't I? And hopefully 1 at each station is going to come up. So the germination has been quite good here, because I can see there's at least 2, in some cases 3, that have germinated. And all we shall do is to thin those to the strongest plant once they just get a little bigger. So it's been a busy day today, doing the things that we need to do. And I hope that you have a slightly more understanding now of what succession sowing and planting is. And you can start to get your head around making those plans and when you need to be sowing things. I just noticed, Mrs. W, because our grandson is here with us today. In fact, all the grandchildren will be here in about half an hour's time. Charlie, his magnifying glass here, look.
He's been bug spotting.
He's bug spotting. He does love Nanny and Grandad's garden. And loves his fresh veg, doesn't he? But then he's always grown up. Coming to see Nanny and Grandad and getting his fresh veg. I thought he might have been about today, but he's not actually come outside while we've been filming, so now do let us know what you've been up to this week. We're in mid-May. What have you been planting out? Have you been doing some succession sowing? Do let us know in the comments below the things that you have been up to. Now, I was speaking to Ken over there in Wales, and we were talking about the Malvern Show. It's a place that myself and Mrs. W really want to try and visit, and we're going to try and see if we can get there for the autumn show. Time. I did just want to say, for all you people that have been subscribing to the channel and you're new to the channel, there have been several of you. Welcome to our channel. It's really great that you've come on board. And don't be shy. Leave us comments down there in the comments section so that we know where you are and what you're up to. Only by sharing our experiences in those comments down below can we all learn something. We all do learn something. Although we've been gardening for some time now, we're always learning. There's something new to learn every single day. We shall see you on the next one.